All right, I was thinking of what I wanted to title this live stream, and I just wanted to title it "The Truest Thing Possible." And I want to talk about truth. I want to speak vulnerable truth, but the way that I've been framing things lately is in a portrait of collapse, a portrait of collapse and dread, and the things that I've been speaking about have been true, but the vibe hasn't been true. Because I'm going to read a verse in a moment that I'm trying to embody every day because it's like the seed of joy. It's a remembrance of joy. It's something Paul said in the Bible. But regardless of what I'm going through and regardless of what anyone's going through, I won't say regardless of what anyone's going through, but I'll say regardless of what I'm going through. The reality is always the same. It's always praise God. Praise God. So I want to speak truths. And the first truth that I'll say is sometimes when I'm about to do a live stream, I'll I'll have a mild panic attack. I'll panic. And the longer that I go without doing a live stream, the more that I panic. And I don't actually know why. But I want to say that to you guys. I've been writing with pen and paper. I'm back to writing with a pen and a paper. Sometimes I go through the second truth that I'll say is sometimes I go through periods of my life that I always write every day, but sometimes I type onto a tablet. And when I type onto a tablet, it's so easy to get distracted. It's so easy to pull up different social media apps. Easy to it's so easy to get pulled into literally a million different directions. And someone just asked me how I'm doing. I'm doing well. I am doing well, and I will say over the past week, I have the videos that I've been creating for the past week and a half. I incidentally fell into a trap where I've been framing the myself maybe as not doing well, and there's reasons why I've done that. Reasons that I've been writing about with pen and a paper. But one thing I'll say as to why a reason is that I've been doing that is because I like to write. I like to write and I like to speak powerful language. And sometimes I get into a trap of being too dramatic, being overly dramatic. But words have a lot of power, and when I speak dramatic words, how's the volume, by the way? Is the volume good? When I speak dramatically about myself, incidentally, I don't even sometimes do it on purpose, but then I start to embody the drama of the language that I'm using. And so the truth is that I am doing well. The truth is, praise God. Yeah, I'm drinking black coffee. I always drink black coffee. I am doing well, and I need to start embodying that more. Let me read this verse to you guys because it's beautiful. This is 1 Corinthians 13. So Paul's writing to the Corinthians, and he says, "If I speak in the tongues of the mortals and of angels, but do not have love, I am a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal. And if I have prophetic powers and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have all faith so as to move mountains, but do not have love, I am nothing. If I give away all my possessions, and if I hand over my body so that I may boast, but do not have love, I gain nothing." And so I read that to you guys because that's kind of the state that I've been in for the past week and a half, where I've been exercising my faith. I've been seeking articulate truth. I've been seeking understanding. But it's been without love. The love has been the missing ingredient, and if you don't have love, you have nothing. And I'll tell you the reason why I've been lacking love. Sometimes we get pulled in 1,000 different directions. And I love to do this, what I'm doing right here. I love to create videos. I love to live stream. I love to converse with you all. I love all of it. And sometimes I frame my life in a way that is desperate, or frame my life in a way that is that it seems more dreadful than it is. And I don't do that intentionally. The things that I say about my life and my circumstances are all true. But the vibe that I frame it in sometimes is not true. Because the true vibe underneath it all, regardless of what is happening, it is praise God. But what happens is, this is a strange thing that I'm doing here. And I've been doing this for about 2 years, where I create videos and I put my true self out there. And I really did give up a more normal life to write and to create these videos. And so all of that is completely real. And what happens over time is, this is a reality about myself. If you guys want to know something about me, my biggest character flaw, and I have come to see it as a character flaw, is that I cannot stand to lose. I'm so apprehensive to losing. I hate losing. And for about 2 years, I feel like I've been losing. And I know that I haven't actually been losing. I've been playing at times when I feel like I'm losing. The issue isn't that I'm losing, but rather I'm seeing the game of life, because there is an aspect of it that is a game. I'm seeing it in the wrong frame. And the loss, the win that I'm going for isn't even a tangible thing, whereas I would say, if I can get to this place, it would be a win, or if I can accomplish this, it would be a win. I just feel like in general, at times, that I am losing. And it's the one thing in my life that I've always, I don't like to use the word hate, but hate is the word. I've just hated losing. And I don't want any of this to be dramatic, but I want to be very truthful, and it'll go deeper. This truth is going to go deeper, and a deeper truth is that I have a fear of rejection. I don't like to be rejected. I don't like to be cast aside. I don't like to be belittled. And So when I'm doing something and I feel like I'm losing, even if I don't have a strong definition for what it would be like to win, then it's like things start to stir in my stomach. And that's why I read that verse from Paul, because what has been stirring in my stomach isn't love, it's like seeds of hate. It's seeds of hate because let me paint this picture for you guys of what the loss that I'm referring to is, just broadly, as how that you could see this to be a loss. I was living in my van in Florida 1 year ago. It was in Ocala, Florida, and obviously I've talked about this a ton, but I want to frame it in a way that's not so dramatic. I was living in a van in Ocala, Florida. It was last summer. It was incredibly hot outside. I had a girlfriend, and there was a time, there was a like a week long period where I got sick. I was incredibly sick. I mean, it was bad. Like my whole, it was worse than a flu. I had there were parts of my body that were swollen, and I didn't even know why that part of my body was swollen. All of my lymph nodes were swollen, raging fever, literally no energy. All of the energy zapped from me, and it was so bad that I had to go to the emergency room. And I don't even do that kind of stuff. I don't go to the emergency room. I don't go to doctors. But a doctor who I trust did, told me to go to the emergency room. And I trust him as well. I still trust him. And the doctor was my girlfriend's dad, my girlfriend at the time's dad. And he's like, dude, you've got to go to the emergency room. But I couldn't afford to go to the emergency room, but I went anyway. And that all just is what it is. And I say all of that because that was the state of my life 1 year ago, where I was living in a van in the Florida heat. I had a brutal fever. I was so sick, and there was nowhere that I could go for reprieve. Like I couldn't go anywhere to cool down. And the reason why I paint that in the frame of being in an unrelenting state of loss is because I did have a girlfriend, and I wanted to. There was a desire within me to move on with my life, like get out of this stage of living in a van and have a more mundane life. But I had kind of already trapped myself in a way. Like I couldn't make enough money to get an apartment, and she had always told me that she didn't care about my living circumstances. Like we could make it work despite all of that. But the reality is, you really can't bring a child into this world. You just can't. If you live in a van, you can't bring a child into this world. And so, yeah, she was okay with it in the moment, but I wasn't naive to the fact that she wouldn't be okay with it long term. Certainly, she would not be okay with it long term. Something would have to change. And so when I say like failure and loss, and I feel like I just couldn't find a win, and I kept losing, is I couldn't find a way out of that circumstance of living in a van, getting out of the van so that I could move on with my life, begin to start a family, be in a more normal state. I couldn't find a way out, and I was even working a job, and I was working a lot of hours at the job, but it just wasn't enough to earn money to get an apartment and make it out of this place of what is essentially poverty, what is essentially deep poverty. And so that's the loss. That's when I say that I was in a state of unrelenting loss. That's the state that I was in. I just couldn't find a win. And in a way, I've kind of been in that state for the past 2 to 3 years, ever since I quit my job. And there's something about that is so vexing. Vexing is the perfect word because vexing means you're confused, you're frustrated, and you're spiraling. Like you're in a situation where you don't know how to make the situation better. It's confusing. You keep trying, you put more effort in, but it's frustrating, and the whole thing is just a spiral. And so it's vexing. And so I keep losing for uh, I keep losing for like 3 years, doing whatever I can to. My whole goal is to be a writer. That is what I want to do. I want to be a writer. I've always wanted to be a writer. And I don't know if you can tell, but what it is that I'm doing here is essentially writing. It is like modern writing. Even the things that I'm saying right now, it's obviously not verbatim, but I wrote about these things. And in every video that I make, I've written about the things that I talk about. And it, and then I just speak it rather than give you the piece of paper that I've written. I speak it, and I do that because I. It's even better than writing. It's what I love to do. But what happens when you try to pursue a creative act and try to I feel compelled to do this thing, and I've felt compelled to do this thing for a long time. But the issue is that when you feel compelled to do something, especially a creative act like this, you get vulnerable and you put your true self out there. And these are the things that I try to convey in my videos, but I just don't think I do it well. And so that's why I'm trying to do it now in a way that is not dramatic. You put yourself out there, and people in real life and online, like, they attack you for it. And the thing that I'm putting out there is my true self. Like, I'm always being as vulnerable and truthful as possible. And then they attack you for it. And it's so painful. It like bleeds your heart. It's the worst thing ever. And it just adds, so I paint this picture because all of this just adds to my vexation. And I'm not saying the vexation is good. The anger that I've felt recently for the past week and a half, I'm not saying it's good. It's the opposite of good. I'm just talking about this because now I've learned from it. I've learned from it, and I've gone back to the basics of just doing what I love, writing with a pen and a paper. So anyway, people start to attack you for putting yourself out there, and the culmination of all of these things, like being stuck, you sacrifice everything, you let go of everything that you have, you pour all of your time and energy into succeeding, whatever that even means to succeed, but you just hope that maybe through efforts and maybe through God's grace and maybe through continuously sacrificing and trying to win each and every day, maybe it can get to a point where, I don't know, the sacrifice pays off. And obviously we need the sacrifice to pay off in the eternal realm. We need to have our hearts in heaven, the treasure of our hearts in heaven. But you do want it would be crazy to say that you don't want reprieve in this world as well. Sometimes this world becomes so unrelenting, you just want a little bit of reprieve. But when you don't have reprieve and people attack you, and they attack you for things that you already know about yourself, and they just press on open wounds, it's vexing. It throws you deeper into that spiral of frustration, feeling alone, feeling attacked. But I've known the solution for this, and I've known the solution this whole journey, this whole 2 years of loss. Again, my biggest character flaw is that I hate losing, and it is a character flaw. And so because that is my biggest character flaw, it's like God has had to show me I've got to step into the loss. I've got to be willing to lose. And just because I lose and I'm in a state that I perceive to be lost, I can't allow myself to be vexed. I can't allow myself to lose joy and lose love. And so I want to tell you guys about how lust almost ruined my life. Lust almost ruined my life, and it's probably not the type of lust that you would expect. When you find yourself in this sort of vexing spiral where you feel like everybody's against you, and you've given up everything in order to do what you believe to be is right, and you just can't find a win, but people keep attacking you anyway. The good desire that started off within me was the desire that I said, like, there are desires, and it's like a desire to have a more normal life and to start a family and move into that direction. But maybe all desire is bad. Maybe all desire is meant to be let go of. Because what happens is, even when you have a good desire like that one, which is a desire to just have a normal, simple life and to start a family and to move in a simple direction. That's what a lot of my videos are about. That's kind of what I just want, is to move in that direction. This has been so crazy. I just want a normal, peaceful life. And when you want those things, that's a desire. And so what happens is other desires start to blossom as a result of having that initial desire. And so when I say that lust almost ruined my life, what I mean is, this is something that I've learned a few days ago. It's kind of bizarre. When people lust, where is that coming from? And when I say lust, I feel like everybody in this chat knows what I'm talking about. Like, there's modern connotations around what lust means. But when we are under the command of lust, when we're under the temptation of lust, where is it actually coming from? And for me, where I believe it's coming from, I don't even have fruits of the lust that you would be thinking of with these modern connotations. The lust that I've been suffering from is the lust of vindication. That has been my problem, and that almost ruined my life. The lust of vindication. Not instant gratification, the lust of vindication. Vindication in terms of, dude, so many people, none of this is me complaining. I'm just being 1,000 with you guys. People in my real life have attacked me for the life that I live, even though I'm not doing anything wrong. People online attack me for the life that I'm living, even though I'm not doing anything wrong. And when they do that over enough time, if you're not perfectly oriented towards God and you don't have the fortitude to endure suffering patiently, other desires start to grow. And I have an intense desire to be vindicated, or I have had an intense desire to be vindicated. And what I mean by that is, everybody's telling me all of these things that I'm doing wrong. And it's like, dude, the only reason why you guys are telling me these things is because I'm in a spot that you deem as unsuccessful. So if I could just be successful, I would be vindicated, and you guys would all have to be quiet. You guys would have to stop talking. I would be completely vindicated, and it would be you that looks foolish. And it's not good. It's not good to let that kind of desire fester in your heart. It's like a desire for revenge. And so here's the fruits of that. Here's what have been the fruits of that for the past week. All of the videos that I've been making for the past week, again, they've been literally true, but the vibe hasn't been true. The vibe has been false. That's why I titled this Praise God, because that is the actual vibe. The vibe is always just praise God, but I haven't been embodying that. I've had an absence of pure love in my heart, and I've had a lust for vindication. I've had a vague desire for revenge. A vague desire to quiet all of these people who keep attacking me. But the fruits of it, man, it's only a poison that hurts myself. It does nothing to the people who are harming me. It literally only hurts myself. Because it sent my mind in a million different directions. And I've been trying then to like appease everybody. And I'll tell you this, this is a perfect picture of what I mean. I don't know if you guys have seen there's a movie called Anger Management, and it's got Adam Sandler and it's got Jack Nicholson. And there's a scene where I think it's at the beginning of the movie where Adam Sandler has to go to anger management for something that he did. And Jack Nicholson is the person leading the anger management class. And Jack Nicholson, they're going around the table, and Jack Nicholson is like, "All right, Dave, it's good that you're here, Dave. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? Who are you?" And right away, Adam Sandler is really mad. He's like, you can see the anger on him. He's like, "Well, I'm an executive assistant for a law firm, and then Jack Nicholson cuts him off, and he's smiling. Jack Nicholson's smiling, and he's like, "No, Dave, we don't want to know what you do. We want to know, who are you?" And then Adam Sandler's like, "Well, I like to, play golf. I like to paint. I like to." And Jack Nicholson's like, "No, we don't want to know about your hobbies. We want to know, who are you?" And then finally, Adam Sandler's like, "Well, I like to have fun. I'm kind of a chill guy. No, Dave, we don't want to know about your personality. We want to know, who are you?" And it's so funny, and it's perfect because that's kind of the state that I've been in for the past week and a half, where you keep losing or perceiving yourself to be in a state of loss repeatedly for so long that it reaches a point where, again, I know this is not right, but it's my reflections, and we always have to learn that it reaches a point where you're like, what do you want from me? What do you guys want from me? Who do I need to be? And that's what Adam Sandler's doing. He's like, "Who do I need to be? I'll just be whoever you want me to be." And that's what I did. And my mind was going into a million different directions, and I'm trying to cater to people and appease people. But that shows me the truth. That shows me the beautiful truth. The truth being that I've just been playing the wrong game. That sometimes we start playing the wrong game. And I'm not actually losing. And people are going to attack you no matter what it is that you do in this world. It doesn't matter. How am I losing if, dude, I get to do this right now. I get to turn on and sorry, I'm venting right now, and I'm not sorry, can't apologize. I've got to say these words, but I'll interact with the chat here in a moment, and I'm grateful to be interacting with the chat. But I get to do all of these things. I get to be alive. I'm blessed. I'm blessed. And so the only way that you actually lose is if you forget that you're blessed. And forget that you have this present moment, that you're alive right now. And I've forgotten that because my mind has been in a million different directions. Doing that Adam Sandler thing where I'm just trying to appease what everybody else wants from me. And it's like, man, it doesn't really matter where anything goes. Because even if I reach a place of what the world would deem as success, but I've lost my love and I've lost my joy, and I'm creating videos in a way that I think other people want me to create videos rather than simply how I want to create videos, then I have nothing. Then I've lost everything. But if I'm just living each and every day grateful and with love in my heart, then it doesn't matter what the external circumstances are in my life. I have everything. and I'm still with God. Right. So again, to say that I'm sorry is not I'm not sorry, but I do want it to be known that the videos that I've made for the past week, the vibe just wasn't right. It was all true. Everything about it was true, but there was a there was some dread intertwined with it, and part of the dread was because I do like to make those videos. I do like to, those are like daily journals for me. I like to just go out and go in nature and record my thoughts. But for the past week, I've been orienting them towards what I think other people want from me. And it's a lose-lose situation because then they're just worse videos and I don't enjoy making them. And so I just have to get back to doing what I love. That's the only thing that we can do. That's the only thing that we can do. And so, like I said, I'm writing with pen and paper again. I'm back to writing with pen and paper. And tomorrow, the thing that I've been writing about, the thing that is really on my heart isn't, again, I love writing, and so the nature of writing and, I'm hesitant to say being a writer, but just the nature of writing. These are loud. Sometimes when you write, you take things into, you try to write story, and the reality of writing stories is that in order for there to be light, there has to be darkness. And so I've just been I've been painting the darkness nonstop, just darkness, darkness, darkness. And it reaches a point where it's actually not so representative of my life because the way that I feel is light. It's not, I don't really feel that darkness. And so the things that I've been talking about, the stories have been true, but the vibe just hasn't been right. So I don't regret it. I'm not sorry because I had to go to that place in order to learn from it, but you got to go back to what you love. It's like The Scientist by Coldplay. Let's go back to the start. It's like Begin Again, and I don't even like new Taylor Swift, but it's like Begin Again by Taylor Swift. Let's just begin again. Let's start new. Anyway, what's going on with you guys? I don't want to scroll back up too deep into the chat because there might be uh, other conversations happening there, but now I am reading the chat, so let me know if you guys have anything to add or ask. Relative, ideally, to what I'm saying, or whatever you'd like. What is painting the darkness? What is painting the darkness? Well, when I say painting the darkness, I mean the. It's a good question, and that's right on topic. Thank you, Jacob Schlosser. What I mean by painting the darkness is the physical things that I say about my life are true. That it's actually, in a way, the circumstances are even worse than what I paint. I lived in a van for 2 years. All of that was good and well, but then I moved back to stay with a friend. I was expecting to be able to stay there for about 5 months and get a job going there. That way I could re-establish my life in that new city. But I got evicted about 2 months into it. So that threw me into chaos. And in order to not continue to sleep outside, I came over to stay with my family. But the issue is that even before I talked about staying with my family, I spoke about an issue with my hometown. I love my hometown so much, rather the people in my hometown. But my hometown is the portrait of the pillaging of America. So much of America has gotten pillaged, and I have traveled all over. I don't know any place that has got pillaged more than my hometown. And people talk about growing up in poverty and growing up in inner cities. Where I'm from isn't necessarily dangerous, but it is a great trap. Because if you live in an inner city, like if you're in that sort of poverty, then the good thing is that you are in a city and you can easily get to better parts of the city. Like you can bike or find a way to get to other parts of the city, ride a bus to get a job and things like that. The issue with my hometown is that all of the jobs have been taken from here. The economy has been, the rug of the economy has been pulled out from under my hometown. And it's like worse than an inner city because it's like an island. It's such a small town and it's surrounded by cornfields and there's almost no employment in this town. And so it's a trap. And so I kind of feel like a dog backed into a corner. I'm so grateful to be sleeping indoors. I'm so grateful to be around my family. I'm so close to all of my family and I love them dearly. But I am a 29-year-old man trying to uh, move forward in my life. I went backwards in order to go forwards. I let go of the house that I owned. I sold all of my stuff, went way backwards so that I could end up going forwards. But now it's incredibly difficult. I don't want to say that actually. I don't want to say incredibly difficult, but it has been it has felt shackling to be here because there's a I don't want to work. I need to get to a place where I work for myself, yes, but I do want to work a job in the meantime, of course. But there's not a lot. It's not an exaggeration to say there's almost no opportunity here. And so when I say painting the darkness, inside of me is good, inside of me is great, inside of me is light, inside of me is grateful, inside of me is oriented towards God. But my external circumstances are bleak. And when I say painting the darkness, I've been focusing way too much on the external circumstances. And it's just not true. They are true, but my attention towards them is not true. Does that make sense? Let me know if everything I'm saying makes sense. Vincent said the economy is collapsing because of dark powers and principalities. I would say the economy is being held up by dark powers and principalities. I would say the opposite. I would say our only pathway forward is an actual crash. JT said, "Yo, can I ask you for some advice? I'm in a sticky situation." Yeah, you can ask for some advice. Sounds like Sweden. Yeah, it's everybody in the world. It's crazy. It's every country. Not good. Who was asking for advice? JT. Yeah, JT. Ask for some advice. Eternal Light. It's good to see you. You've been around for a long time. I love to see those who have been around for a long time. Appreciate you. We wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and against the rulers of this dark world. Correct. That's exactly why I say the videos that I've been saying are tangibly and physically true, but they're false because it is me focusing on fighting against flesh and blood, physicalities. The war is actually within myself. I've been working against myself. So now I just want to talk more about God and Jesus. Looking for JT. What's your question, JT? You said you had a situation. Maybe we could all help you if you iterate it. And Kino said, where from England? Are you asking me if I'm from England? Oh. Clary Peace said hello from England. Hello, Clary. Clary. Pre-trib or post-trib about Jacob's trouble? I don't get into theology. I'm not a theologian. I just need Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ takes away the sins of the world. I need to be where Jesus Christ is. LOL said, finally made it to a live. Hope all is well. Favorite channel with amazing insights. Thank you. I often reflect deeply after your videos and live streams. Yeah, thank you for saying that, LOLs. I'm going to make my videos better because they've been too dread-filled. And I don't want to give that energy to you guys. That's not good energy. It's not fair. It's fake, too. It's fake. The things that I've been saying are tangibly true, but that vibe is not real. The vibe of dread, that is fake. And again, sorry isn't the exact word because I'm not regretful, but I see the error. I'm grateful that it happened. And I'll fix it. No more dread. Yeah, the war is one. I'm looking for JT's. JT said he's got a situation, but he hasn't said his situation. Isaac Flores said, I'm in the same place, bro. I'm trying to stay strong myself, but sometimes feel I'm losing hope. Lost a good job in finance and had to move back home in a small town with no money. I feel stuck. Yeah, your situation sounds exactly like mine. I'm in the same place, bro. I'm trying to stay strong myself, but sometimes feel I'm losing hope. Lost a good job in finance and had to move back home in a small town with no money. I feel stuck. It's my exact same situation. Even the finance part. Nima said, I respect you tons, bro, but you said something once. You mentioned because of bad credit, you need to save up enough money to pay off a lease in full prior to moving in. No shot, bro. That's false. If you think that there's no shot, bro, then you don't know people with bad credit. I'm really this guy. And all of my friends are really that guy. We're not strangers to bad credit. Any tips on how I can get my dad to stop getting super jealous? Interesting. Can't do that, Gunter. You can't do that. James, what is your perspective on the new covenant? Maybe it's too large of a topic for now. Maybe it's too large of a topic, but maybe it's not too large of a topic because I have to get back to what I love, and I love talking about God. And so I would like to talk about that. But I was looking for JT's question because he said he was looking for advice, and that would be nice to see his situation. Vincent, what do you mean by the new covenant? Do you mean do you mean there was the old covenant, which was the 10 commandments, and it was in an ark, and before Jesus, people had the covenant to uphold the 10 commandments, and then Jesus came in the ark of the new covenant, Mary, and Jesus' death and resurrection is the new covenant, the covenant of forgiveness. What do you mean, Vincent? What constitutes credit in the USA? Ability to pay back debts and history of paying back debts. I'm in a literal desert and a spiritual desert. Good times. I wonder if anybody's not in a dead city. Because Vincent just said I'm also in a dead end city trying to get out. Is there anybody in here whose city is good? Yeah, Eternal Light, I think you're talking to me. And I would say yes. Here in my city, only rich people. I'm the poor one. Yeah, blessed are you if you're poor. Jesus is the covenant. He gave one more commandment to add to the 10 commandments, and that was love. I don't know if that is a new covenant. I think the 10 commandments point to love. And I think he was my perspective on the 10 commandments compared to the covenant of Jesus, the old covenant versus the new covenant. This is pretty interesting. Sometimes that we think, there that goes. Sometimes that we think complication is equal to intelligence, and simplicity is equal to lack of intelligence. And so I think about this in terms of writing. Like, a good writer is someone who, it isn't somebody who's using big words, but rather it's someone who can actually be understood. Meaning, I have a thought in my mind, I have something that is in my mind, and I can use language to transfer that to your mind. And if I'm a good writer, if I'm a good speaker, then it's like there's no interruption of connection. What is in my mind goes straight to your mind, and there's no communication issue. But some people think good writing is how intelligent you come off as, using complicated vernacular and using the biggest words possible. But that's the opposite of good writing, because then you're just not understood. And it's all an ego trip. You're just trying to show people how intelligent you are. But you're actually not being a good writer. You're just being grandiose. And in that same way, I don't really have a firm opinion on evolution. But if you look at apes, I think apes have like 50 chromosomes or something like that in their DNA. And so the more intelligent that an animal is, they actually start to lose chromosomes. And so our DNA is similar to an ape, but ours is actually simpler. We have less chromosomes. And so in the same way that good writing isn't convoluted and using grandiose language, it is just being understood. It is simple. In that same way, the simpler the DNA is, the more intelligent the creature is, the closer to God the creature is. And in that same way, you start off with 10 commandments. God is telling you to do 10 things. And those individuals who brought forth the 10 commandments, they unraveled it, and it became like 400 plus laws. So it became more complicated. But Jesus went the other way with it, and so instead of making it more complicated, he took it from 10 to 2. And it was still the same law in essence, but it was simplified, easier to understand. It is love thy God with all of thy heart, and love thy neighbor as yourself, and love thy enemy. Love thy neighbor and your enemy as yourself. And so my opinion on the new covenant is that, again, I don't know if evolution is the right word, but the simplifying of it is like an evolution. It doesn't make it more. Simplifying it doesn't lessen it. It actually makes it greater, if that makes sense. Do those things make sense? I wonder if JT said his situation yet. Where is JT's situation? Oh, JT, where are you? Build a walled garden, yes, absolutely. Samuel Brian Gill said, glad to see you well, brother. Glad to see you as well. Hope you're well. In the beginning, the earth was formless and void, and darkness was upon the waters. ZZ said, do you write poems? I write poems sometimes, and I could read you guys a poem, actually. Alright, I've got a poem right here. Enjoy the present. Enjoy the present with love in your heart. If we don't have love, we have nothing. David Duchovny on the X-Files. Somebody said I look like David Duchovny. Yeah, it's crazy. I think I told this story, but I was at I was in a forest, and there was a bird watching center in a forest. And I was in this building. There was a woman in the corner eating lunch, and she looked over at me and she said, I look like David Duchovny. And I didn't know who that was. But sometimes people just take conversations wherever they want to take them and whatever they're interested in, and I just like to listen. And it was kind of crazy. We started talking about movies, and I like The Dark Knight. We were talking about The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises. But then she started talking about infinite universes and how she's been doing a lot of research into quantum physics. And I don't know. I don't even know why I brought that up. It was just funny how the conversation started to go into quantum physics. And a lot of people think they know about that kind of stuff. I don't know about that stuff. We can't even fathom it. Alright, I gotta remove this guy. If you say bad things, I've gotta remove you from the channel because I don't know what else to do. I don't have moderators, so I just remove you for safety. I recently watched the Exodus series by Jordan Peterson, and it was absolutely revelatory. I really like I wish... I don't want to say anything about that, actually, because it's not really loving. I was just going to say that I liked his Bible lectures he did by himself, but I won't say anything further. All right, I'll read this poem because this is it's probably not a great poem, but it's got a nice message. I wrote this yesterday. Today, my heart is calm, yet I'm not sad. Some of my favorite days began with tears, grieving and mourning all that there is to mourn, but today my heart is calm, and I am not sad. I'm not holding on to anything. All of my burdens were let go. Dropped, maybe. Why did I drop what was being carried? Did I finally break? Has life finally broken me? If I saw a child weeping in a corner by himself, I'll ask him what's wrong. He'll say, when I'm not crying, I'm angry and afraid. The sadness calms my heart. I'd say, son, these burdens you carry don't help yourself or anyone. Let them go. If I'd say that to a child, why would I not say the same to myself? Today my heart is calm, yet I'm not sad. That's a poem by me, written yesterday. I think the stillness is a spiritual stillness, less of what is around me externally and more of a still in my trust in God, says Vincent. Vincent said, what has been heavy on my heart while in the desert has been, be still and know I am God. Reading the story of David in the Old Testament has helped a lot to understand this. What about David's story in the Old Testament helped you understand that, Vincent? Have you read any of the Holy Desert Fathers? I think maybe Saint John of the Cross may be an individual who you'd be referring to as a Holy Desert Father. Possibly, I could be wrong. But yeah, I've read his poem, Dark Night of the Soul. I didn't read the book accompanied with it. I glanced through it, but I didn't read the whole thing. But I have read him, and the idea behind that poem has helped me a lot in my life, or a lot at a specific time, because it makes you appreciate that if you're in a dark time in your life and you cry out to God and yet you keep hearing silence, you can perceive that silence however you'd like, but that silence is an opportunity to trust God. Even God renews us. God lifts us up in our darkest moments. But I think one of the things that we're meant to do in our life, in the people who we are, the person who we are and who we're becoming, is to become a friend of God. And part of what it means to become a friend of God is to trust God even when you don't hear him explicitly, even when you're not comforted by him, even if you feel like you're not comforted by him in any given moment, to use that opportunity to deliberately trust God. And I think that's where unwavering faith is built from. David was an exile out of Israel in the wilderness while being hunted by Saul, and he did not want to Saul, but he couldn't trust a way out of exile. David chose to trust in God through it all. The thing that I always think about with David is the man after God's heart and what that means. Because I might, tomorrow's Saturday, I might just start going, I don't want to make any promises. Let your yeses mean yes and your no's mean no. And so my intention, I love live streaming, and I might live stream more often, maybe like more of a daily thing. But I want to title one of these live streams and make the focal point, not today, but make one of the focal points maybe tomorrow, why I gave my life to Jesus Christ and what that literally means. Not tell a story of like an emotional breakthrough or something that I have, but literally why I gave my life to Jesus Christ and what that means. And I don't even know how to relate that to what I was about to say, but the thing about David is David was after the heart of God. David was seeking the heart of God, but David kept messing up. David did bad things. David slept with married women. Not good. And then I don't think he just tried to have their spouse ended. I think he actually had their spouse ended. And he didn't ask the people who he wronged for forgiveness. He first asked God for forgiveness. And in the same way that I love that, because there's so much noise in the world, and in the same way that earlier I said sometimes I get caught up trying to appease everybody and listen to all of these different noises. The best thing to do is just keep your eyes on God. That is where peace and fulfillment comes from. And we incidentally wrong people. We put off doing the good that we could do, and we do harm to people incidentally or intentionally. But the first entity, the first person that we need to be reconciled with is God. And to always be a man after the heart of God. Because it's like in the trap is like in the story of Cain and Abel, where Cain's sacrifices were insufficient. Cain was giving leftovers to God. Cain wasn't giving his best to God, and Abel was. And Cain's attention often went to Abel, not keeping his attention on God. Abel's attention was on God. Cain's attention went to Abel. And Cain's like, why do you favor Abel? Like, why do you accept his sacrifices and not mine? And God's like, well, if you did what is right, would you not be rewarded? Why are you worried about what your brother's doing? Why don't you just focus on doing what is right, and then you'll be rewarded? The reason you're not rewarded is because you keep focusing on envy, what other people have and what you don't have. And in that same way, Jesus was talking to his disciples, and he's telling Peter, definitely Peter, and I think other disciples, he's like, Peter, you're going to have to follow me. You're going to reach your hands up, and you're going to be led to places that you don't want to go, but follow me. And the disciple that he's talking to, again, I think it's Peter, is like, he's like, well, what about that guy? Why doesn't that guy have to do it? And he's looking at John, the only disciple who wasn't martyred. He's like, why are you not telling him that? Why doesn't he have to follow you as well? And Jesus is like, what's it to you if what I want for him to do? Why does it matter what I want for him to do? I'm telling you what you need to do. Don't worry about what he needs to do. Keep your eyes on me. Keep your eyes on what is right and just. Right. Right. And Kino said, only people who suffer become saints. Yeah, but what does that even mean to suffer? Because I need more fortitude. I need more. I think to be mortified is to suffer with joy. I think if you're mortified, you're afraid of God, but you're suffering with joy. And I think fortified means that you're suffering well. Yeah, suffer, but even when we're suffering, let's still do our hair and smile. Maybe not smile, but let's not complain about our suffering, or at least try not to. Let's suffer well. Cain and Abel reconciled in Noah. Jesus, the mediator in between the devil and the angel we all contend with. Eternal Light said, my life is not my own. Yes. Do you think it's possible to use your creative gifts to get closer to God? Guess I'm struggling with the fruits versus the tree thing as far as my aspirations go. That's a good question. Do you think it's possible to use your creative gifts to get closer to God? I think the way that you worded that question is something that I struggle with, especially the first part. You said, do you think it's possible to use your creative gifts to get closer to God? I think framing it in terms of creative gifts for me is wrong. As in, if I think that I'm gifted, I don't really know anybody that doesn't have the gift of creation. Not only do we all have the gift of creation, we're all called to create. Every single person is made in the image of God. God is the creator. And so we all have that gift. And so it's not a matter of using the creative gift to get closer to God, but rather the participation in creativity is a form of walking with God. Just as God is a creator, we all have the capacity to create. And when you participate in creation for its own sake, not for what it can bring you, which is what I've struggled with. When you participate in creation for its own sake and just keep your eyes on God, selflessly, without thought of reward, philotimo, a love of honor, a love of divine purpose. When you do it in that form, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what the fruit of that is. You're focusing on the tree. And the tree is the act of creation. The tree is, like when people say it's not about the destination, it's about the journey. That is focusing on the tree. Don't worry about what the creative act can bring you or the world or other people. The fact of getting to participate in creation is a gift in and of itself, I believe. Be humble and try to love others. Yes. We shape and create things with our words. Yes. Yeah, it's interesting that in the Garden of Eden, God tells Adam to start naming the animals. And he doesn't force the names upon the animals. He allows Adam to name the animals. And through allowing Adam to name the animals and telling Adam that he has dominion over the garden, in a way, he's allowing him to create his own reality. Mandy Kwong says, I usually imagine, good to see you, Mandy. I usually imagine Peter to be comical. He is quite a character. I kind of imagine Peter to be serious and the one who has jokes coming to him, where, like John in the Bible, John is when they talk about the resurrection in the book of John, John's referring to himself, and he says 3 times that himself and Peter raced to the tomb, and he makes it known 3 times that he won the race, that he is faster than Peter. I'm struggling with making myself an idol rather than putting God first and denying myself and finding it so hard to deny myself. Yeah, I appreciate you saying that, Eternal Light. I'm struggling with making myself an idol rather than putting God first and denying myself. I find it so hard to deny myself. And that's the entirety of what I want to talk about probably tomorrow. I'll title it, sorry if I'm yelling, those chimes got really loud. I'll title it Why I Gave My Life to Jesus. Because I struggle with that as well, and I appreciate you saying that, because we all struggle with that. And I think if you get to a point where you think you don't struggle with that, that's like the beginning of a fall. It's like the beginning of a new pride. But if you repent and recognize that we're always struggling with that, that's how you're free of it. Simon's Diamond Soul, it's good to see you. It's good to see you, Simon's Diamond Soul. He said, hello, James. Hope you're doing well. Me, I am okay, but just okay. Why are you just okay, Simon's Diamond Soul? What's going on with you that you're just okay? What do Yolu says about regrets over missed opportunities? What do I say about regrets over missed opportunities? I understand that a lot of people like to harbor regret and maybe think it's a masculine thing to recognize that you're wrong and hold regrets. But I think the issue with holding on to regrets, it's a double-edged sword where, yeah, you've done wrong in this world. Nobody's perfect. We've all made mistakes. But one, if you hold regret, then it implies that you're not grateful for the moment that you're at right now. And two, if you hold regrets, it brings you into a state of shame and guilt. And because you're carrying that shame and guilt, it's making life harder than what it needs to be. And because life is harder than what it needs to be, that's the spiral of becoming vexed. You get vexed, you get angry and confused, and then you start to sin more. You start to repeat the things that you regret. And the only way to get out of it is to be forgiven. And you can't forgive yourself, you've got to be forgiven by the one without sin. And then your debts are paid, literally. I've heard that most of Jesus' disciples were a lot younger than we think. Most were 12 to 18. Reading the Bible with that context is interesting. 12 would be pretty young age. I would be surprised if he had 12-year-old disciples, but maybe 18 to 22 sounds more realistic. I keep my mind open, but I can definitely imagine, yeah. I can definitely imagine a 12-year-old being concerned about who ran fastest. Yeah, I don't think John was 12 years old, though. I could be wrong. Jacob, I think when you know for sure Jesus loves you, you're empowered to get ahead in life. Forgiveness is freedom. Forgiveness is the only pathway to freedom. We have to forgive, and we've got to be forgiven. What do you think Jesus would say about this sacred plant? I don't know if it's a sacred plant, but I think it does come down to a question of whether or not anything serves you. Because I'll tell you this, there was a time in my life that I consumed cannabis while I was when I had just got done playing football. And it wasn't good, but I was in college, and I was so lost in my life. I was like 20 years old, and I'd never consumed cannabis before. But I had a few weeks later, or earlier rather, maybe a few months earlier, got prescribed ADHD medicine. And the ADHD medicine, it was not abstractly, it was literally physically deteriorating my soul. But I didn't see it because it was like simultaneously blinding me. And I consumed cannabis for the first time in my life. And when I did that, it allowed me to slow down for a second and not worry about all of my anxieties and all of the ill things that I was focused on, and allowed me to think clearly for just a moment. And I had an epiphany where I was like, I need to stop consuming this medicine today. And there was like no withdrawals or anything that happened. It just calmed me for a moment to allow me to get off of something that was, I'd only been on it for a few months, but it was actually horrible for me. And if I would have consumed that for any long duration of time, there would have been horrible consequences. So at that time in my life, it did serve me. What do you think about free will? Do you think all of our actions are predestined or under God's sovereignty, providence sovereignty? I think it's a combination that we can't quite conceptualize, and so we get into theological arguments about it. God can do anything that he wants. That's self-evident. I saw an interview the other day that I have to stop watching content because I was watching an interview between two Protestant preachers, and one, I've actually talked about him before. He is so big into predestination, and that assumes that there's people who are going to go to heaven no matter what, but there's people who are going to go to the opposite direction no matter what. That just doesn't make sense to me. I'm not for this guy. But the guy that he was interviewing was even crazier because the guy's like trying to catch him. He's like, can God do this? Can God do this? And the guy was saying, no. And I was like, God can do anything that he wants. There's nothing, it's self-evident that there's nothing outside of God's power. That's why I'm not Catholic, but people talk about the Eucharist and God becoming, people believe that God is present in the Eucharist, and the bread and wine literally becomes the body and blood of Jesus Christ. Again, I'm not even saying I believe in that. I'm not Catholic, I'm not Orthodox, but you can conceptualize how that would be possible, if only because there's nothing out, even the lowest humility of literally becoming bread, there's nothing outside of God's providence. God can just do whatever he wants. So, and I think one thing that he wants to do is give us free will. That way he doesn't force us into obedience or rebellion, but rather gives us the option to love him and to become a friend of him. And if he forced you to be a friend of him, that's not really a friend. He allows you to make that choice on your own. So that's my thoughts. Lots of stress recently. I had to do a formation to a college colleague at work for 4 days straight, but now I am sick but free. I am at my day off finally. Congrats. Hope you're enjoying this Friday. Were you named after James in the Bible? I was named after my grandpa, who's got the exact same name. But I imagine when the name began, it was named after James in the Bible. Meditation is better than pills, I think, but sometimes you need those pills for anxiety, unfortunately. Maybe, but I think it's a slippery slope where it actually makes it worse in the long term. Just my opinion. Hi, quick question. If you were given the chance to control time, what would you choose, to go back in time or check the future? If I were given the chance to control time, I would force myself to Live fully in the present moment, not past or the future. Everything that we need is here today. Stay in the present, yes. Was on drugs, girlfriend left, family member passed, unemployed and broke, got a DUI all in 1 year, but I know God's got me. Yes. Jacob, when I said getting ahead in life, I meant doing better than others by the grace of God. You're in China, Mandy Kwong? Is that correct? You're in China? Did JT ever give his situation? Because I was trying to talk about JT's situation, but I think he said that and left. Or didn't, never said it. Where are you living currently? Let it be known. I read all of the comments. I know who you are. I haven't blocked you, but your comments are out of this world. And I would imagine, I would hope young age from the person who just said, where are you living currently? Is the vice of addiction the vehicle to virtue? I don't know. It depends what you mean by addiction. Addicted to what? Jacob, do you currently struggle with addiction? Eternal Light said, I am addicted to caffeine and nicotine. I abuse these substances because I don't know how to deal with the pain. Yeah, the power of the words that we're using shouldn't be discarded, though, because you said to say I am is one of the most powerful phrases that you can say. And so after that, you said addicted to caffeine and nicotine, abuse these substances because I don't know how to deal with the pain. Somebody might have told you a lie to think those things are bad for you. Those things might not be bad for you. They might not be good for you, and the addictive aspect certainly wouldn't be good for you. But maybe the reason why you perceive yourself to be addicted is because you've been told that those aren't good for you. And then so you feel maybe guilt and shame because you consumed them. And then when you carry guilt and shame, and yet you've planted those seeds, we have thoughts in our mind, temptations within our mind. And when we have temptations in our mind, we can disregard them or we can cultivate them. And we cultivate them by, you've got a thought in your mind like, oh, the day's not going really well, you need to drink some coffee. And so you drink some coffee, caffeine, you cultivate that seed. And then what happens is it makes that temptation in your mind more powerful. And those whispers, those temptations are going to be more unrelenting in the future. But maybe the pathway out of it isn't to stop those things altogether, but to see how they can actually serve you. I try to learn from anybody that I can possibly learn from, regardless of who it is or what they believe. And there is wise, I don't agree with Alan Watts, I don't agree with his worldview, but he has wise things that he's said. And something that he said, which was really true, is he said, and I know that he didn't do this because he was an alcoholic. Maybe, okay, I'm wrong. I don't know him personally, so it could be a lie as to how he passed away. But apparently he passed away from his alcoholism. So maybe he didn't actually do this or do it well. But he had a rule that he was always trying to pair a pleasure with a discipline. And so I drink coffee. I do nicotine in terms of the pouches. I used to smoke cigars. Sometimes I still smoke cigars. But I don't think of any of those things bad. I drink coffee while I write. So I'm pairing a pleasure with a discipline. I do nicotine pouches, the Zen, when I am writing later in the day or right now. I have nicotine pouch in my mouth right now. I drink coffee while I'm doing this. And so I'm not doing these, I wouldn't even call them vices. Not all pleasure is bad. Just because something is pleasurable to you doesn't mean it's inherently bad. That might be the lie. But I'm always trying to pair a pleasure with a discipline. And so if I were to consume something that were I don't really like alcohol anymore. But if I were to drink alcohol, I would do it in the context of what it's meant for. So I certainly wouldn't be drinking somewhere by myself, but I like wine. That's like the one alcohol that I would probably consume. And I would drink wine if I were with friends. And so it'd be like a pleasure with a discipline. The discipline is kind of like camaraderie and conversation. So that's my thoughts on that. It's kind of a bit of a rambling, but James, what is your recommendation for a beginner like me when reading the Bible? Where should I start? I have a Bible at home, but I don't know how to read it for now. It's a great question. Um, I would start with the book of John. That's where I would start. I like the book of John. I like the book of Matthew. Those are probably my two favorites. I would start with the book of John, and I'll just leave it at that because I don't want to paint any of my own perceptions on it. I would just recommend that you start with the book of John. God can bring good things from bad. I don't think that addiction is the necessary path to virtue, but if you are an addiction, it can be a path if you reach out to God for help. Yeah. What is your POV on human consciousness, spirit, and flesh? It all seems limited, bound to the flesh, cause of stuff like fainting or blacking out. There's the feeling of disappearing. It all seems limited, bound to the flesh, because of stuff like fainting or blacking out. There's the feeling of disappearing. What is your POV on human consciousness, spirit, and flesh? Um, it all seems limited, bound to the flesh. I don't know. This might be kind of insane, but sometimes when I'm laying in bed at night, one thing that I do with my consciousness from time to time is have if I'm lacking peace, I usually meditate on the life of Jesus, and I imagine myself being present in different moments of Jesus's life. But sometimes it's kind of hard to focus your mind on one thing like that. So I make my consciousness really big, as in I imagine looking at myself in the room that I'm in. Then I imagine myself looking at the house, then the town, then the city or the state, the country, until I'm in the earth atmosphere. And then I imagine my entire consciousness like a blanket that is drifting over that is like warming the entire earth. And then I start to imagine my family and what they're doing, and it's kind of like that episode of SpongeBob where he is lucid dreaming and he goes to see his friends' dreams and see what they do at nighttime. That's kind of what I don't know. That might just be out of this world crazy, but that's what I do. Um, it brings me comfort. It makes me feel more connected to people. especially the people that I love and who I think of explicitly. So that might be kind of crazy, but that's my thought on consciousness. That's what comes to my mind. Vincent, yeah, good point. He said, I need to be more careful with my words. I'm constantly reminded of this. Yeah, exactly. Angelica said, can you pray for me? I serve the Lord in this moment happens. I couldn't control. I fast. I am waiting for the freedom when we serve than we have to protect ourselves. I couldn't control. Yeah, I will pray for you, Angelica. I know you, of course. I've seen you I've seen you in all of the comments. I appreciate you. If possible, maybe more specific, but I will pray for you. Sometimes I just don't want to move at all, not for anything, not for anyone. Yeah, me as well. Discipline is key. If you can't live without consumption of something, it's not feasible. If you are clean, you can rest assured of not having fear of. Good points. That was helpful. Everything in its proper place. Thank you. Yes. Yeah, that's such a good point. Jacob, you can learn from anybody. It doesn't matter. If somebody says a true thing, they say a true thing. It doesn't matter. It's like that Jordan Peterson quote where he said, imagine everybody that you're talking to has something to teach you. And I agree. Jacob said, Alan Watts said the biggest ego trip is trying to get rid of the ego. That seems true to me. Jacob, I completely agree. It's a battle the whole way. I think I need to surrender the battle to Christ and just simply be led by truth with love. Yes. My mom feeling sick right now. Could you please pray? Her name is Sudika. Yes. What is the most beautiful scenario you have seen in your dreams? You were talking only about some nightmares in your previous video. The situation that comes to mind when I think of the most beautiful scenario that I've experienced in a dream. Sometimes we have bad dreams and they make you grateful for the life we have. Sometimes we have good dreams and they make you grieve what was happening in the dream. And the most beautiful thing that has happened in dreams, it's ineffable, but it's just a closeness to the people who I'm around. Like, I wasn't talking to the people and I didn't recognize them explicitly, but it's like I had a deep relationship with them, and I felt like there was no barrier between us. We didn't even need words to bridge the barrier because there was no barrier. And I could talk about that more in regards to the actual scenario, like the environment where I was at. But for right now, love is a language after all, yes. But for right now, I'm on 2%, so we go until the phone can't take it anymore. And so that's all that we have. I will strive to go live again tomorrow because I enjoy it. And I'll probably make a post about what time I'll do it. So if you guys enjoy this, comment on that post or something. Or do something. But the most important thing to do is keep love in your heart. Keep love in your heart, and no matter what you do it with love. And that is all that I have. Goodbye.